Man, I think this is the first time I'm disappointed in New Mutants. Yeah, you heard me correctly. I'm disappointed with the New Mutants book for the first time, I think, ever. I'll also get into why as we go on, but it's not even that I think these issues from this week are necessarily bad. They aren't. I just think they don't match the quality of the Claremont era and what I've expected from this book. But before we get too far into it, the issues I read this week are New Mutants 62 through 70 and New Mutants Annual 4. The first three issues of this batch are all one-off stories. Amara and Empath head back to Nova Roma, but their plane crashes in the jungle. Ileana has a dream of saving the X-Men from a monster and comes to the conclusion that she should kill Forge, and the New Mutants grieve Doug and Warlock steals his corpse. I don't really have much to say about any of these issues. They're good, but nothing really beyond that. They continue the characters' stories and follow up on the plot beats that have already been established, but none of them are done in a way that's extraordinary. I mean, I'm glad to see Amara get her own solo issue, and I feel like this one issue did more for her character than her entire stint on New Mutants The Team. But at the same time, I refuse to let Empath become a sympathetic character. Oh, the poor boy can feel the emotions of everyone and has a hard time filtering that? Sounds like a fucking skill issue, asshole. And your lack of control does not give you the right to manipulate others' emotions. So shut the fuck up. Anything interesting that's implied in Ileana's story is negated by the fact that it's all a dream, and so it doesn't really matter. It was still cool to see the classic X-Men roster, I guess, but I feel like it would have been way cooler if this story was actually Ileana and Lockheed time traveling back in time to that era to save the X-Men. Even though this story really wouldn't have made sense canonically, but you can definitely change up minor things in the story to make it make sense over the time travel plot. And as for issue 64, I got nothing. I mean, it was good to see these characters grieve more, but other than that, I'm coming up empty. So I guess we'll just move on to Ileana's revenge. Like I mentioned, Ileana is hellbent on revenge against Forge because she blames him for the death of the X-Men, and more importantly, her dipshit brother. Despite it being pointed out to her that the X-Men willingly chose to sacrifice themselves to finish that fight against the adversary, she does retort back that they wouldn't have had to do that if Forge hadn't fucked shit up in the first place when he was in Vietnam. Which is true. She has a point there. But despite that reasoning, the rest of the team correctly decides that magic is still going too far, and decide to go along with her revenge for no other reason than to keep her from going too far with it, as best they can. At its core, this story is obviously further build up for the New Mutants plotline in Inferno. I mean, while they're fighting the Freedom Force, Destiny has a vision of the fate of the world due to Ileana's recklessness in wanting Forge dead. However, that shouldn't discount this arc as a whole. It's pretty fun seeing Ileana go full Darkchild for longer than 2 pages, usually, and I really like the back and forth her and Forge have while they're fighting, and Forge realizing that he has no right to deny her her revenge. Other than that, we had some great interactions between the kids and the Freedom Force, and a surprise Kitty Pryde appearance, which is appreciated. Now, before continuing with the rest of the main series issues, I do want to take a brief interlude and talk about New Mutants Annual 4, which of course is part of the Evolutionary War event thing. The reason I'm putting it here in the middle of the video and not at the end like I did the Uncanny one last week is because this one actually affects the main book, and the remaining issues of New Mutants that I have to cover take place after this issue, so it makes no sense to do it here. Those aforementioned effects being Magneto diving further into the Hellfire Club and back to evil, it seems, post Doug death, and Danny getting a power upgrade, change, side grade maybe, her visions of granting a person's fears or desires now come to life as fully physical beings or objects, whatever they are. However, any beings have a mind of their own, she cannot control them, and she can only have one vision up at a time. This does cause her to have a mishap with her enhanced powers in the secondary story, almost getting herself arrested. But yeah, it's definitely a grade of some kind. It is really funny though that these villains added an upgrade power setting to their power removal device, and all it takes is to pull the lever in the wrong direction. I feel like you could have designed that better, but I'm not a scientist. Like last week, the main story involves the main cast of whatever book the annual is of running amok of the High Evolutionary in some way or another. This time it has the team of New Mutants rescuing Amara from the High Evolutionary's goons who want to remove her powers, and of course they disobey Magneto's orders to stay put to do it. Outside of Danny's upgrade, the book also mentions that the Hellfire Club has plans for Amara, which is interesting. It is framed as something nefarious, and it might be, but I'm also realizing that said plans could also just be for an empath working towards convincing Amara's father to join the Hellfire Club, which was kind of already brought up in issue 62. Oh, there is also that final story with the High Evolutionary before he became the High Evolutionary, and Jessica Drew getting injected with the spider serum to save her from radiation poisoning, and then her mom getting mauled, but I just genuinely don't give a shit about the third stories in these, so all in all, I think the primary story in this one was better than the main story in the Uncanny Annual, but only marginally. And only because of its lasting effects on the actual main book. However, this one does have the weaker secondary story, so it ends up evening out in the end. This brings us to the final 4 issues, which take place after Mutants Annual 4, as I mentioned, and follow the New Mutants going to space to rescue Lila from an alien named Spider, who seems to be some sort of capitalist trader, businessman, whatever the fuck. And I'll be honest, this is where most of my disappointment for this week really sets in. Because I just don't care about this plot at all. There are parts of the issues that I like, but as a whole, the story does nothing for me, and the parts I do like are unrelated to the main plot. It just kind of feels like a retread of stories and plot points we've already done with this team. I mean, someone gets captured and then the mutants go and rescue them feels like a plot point we've hit multiple times. Not to mention manipulation in some form or another. It's like Gossamer just constantly manipulating the team for seemingly no reason, other than the fact that she can, and this is what her species does. Like, I'm not sure what the end goal here is. Like, they're going to rescue Lila, and you agreed to help them do that, so why are you making them hate each other? It doesn't make sense. At least Empath is on the rival team, so even when he does go too far, and that's very often when he does that, I can at least understand why he's doing it. But Gossamer, I'm just like, why are you doing the things that you're doing? You clearly don't like Spider, so why are you helping him? Speaking of Spider, he's also just very boring. I don't know what else to say about him. He just doesn't do anything that we haven't seen done by another character in another plotline. Like, I don't know, Mojo or Shadow King or even Viper all have done similar things to what Spider does here, and were just more interesting. The only things I really enjoyed from these back half were Lila's self-sacrifice at the end, Ileana's further descent into evil, and Magneto being done with the children's bullshit and seemingly going back to full villain mode. And I imagine the former two both set up for Inferno plot lines, so the rest of this book is just kind of pointless to me. With that said, I just don't think these issues are very good, but I don't think they're necessarily bad either. I think someone could definitely enjoy these. I just don't. I think they're repetitive and boring, and they just don't hit the highs I've come to expect from this New Mutants book. And that is, at the end of the day, disappointing. Next week will hopefully be better, as we have a couple of issues of X Factor, but more excitingly is the beginning of Excalibur. So, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you then as we inch ever closer to Inferno.